Hello, my name is Jennifer. I'm one of the counselors with the Ascension, Wisconsin Employee Assistance Program. I want to talk to you today a little bit about personal wellness, as well as a review of all of the services that are a benefit to you through the Employee Assistance Program. We're going to talk a little bit about why it's important to look at our own wellness, be aware of how we're doing, and if there's areas that we need to improve, to look at them. And what do we need to do to get there? One of those pieces is observing some good boundaries for our own protection and that of others. And also to realize some of the drains that happen to us that maybe we could weed out of our life. And then the things that give us energy and give us meaning in our life that we maybe need to add more in. And finally, as I mentioned, how our employee assistance program can help you with all of those goals. When I talk to people about stress, the thing that I remind them is that often it's not any one thing. Most of us can deal with messes or hassles or even accidents and traumas if they come in small doses. It's when things continue day after day after day, and it doesn't seem that we get a break. That is the time when we really start to have a breakdown in our wellness. So what do we do to manage that? I also remind people that we're not trying to live a life without stress or without anxiety. In fact, the adrenaline and cortisol and a little bit of that anxiety is really good for us. It motivates us. It keeps us performing at our optimum level, helps us to do our very best and to really care and be passionate about the things that we do. If we have not enough stress, in fact, we can get to a point where we're bored, we're feeling underutilized, we might be resentful, and often we start getting into things that are probably not very helpful because we don't have enough to do or because we're not feeling valued and productive. On the other hand, we don't want to have too much stress where it doesn't feel like we're giving our all or doing well at anything. And everything makes you feel like just one more thing and you're going to blow. So how do we find that perfect stress that's right in the middle? A couple of techniques that we're going to talk about today can help you in the moment, short term, to try to bring yourself back into that medium range of stress. And we know that you might have to use this several times a day. So something that might trigger you, guy tells you off for no reason. Just your commute into work might trigger you. Someone you work with is dropping the ball or keeps messing things up on a project. Or maybe it's more about your home life. When you come home and you have an argument with your spouse or your kids, or you left the house pretty clean, and when you come home, it looks like there was a tornado. All of these things can really set us off in the moment. Check your expectations. What did you expect to happen in this moment? For example, it would be better for you to expect that your commute to work might take a little longer. There might be hassles, there might be construction, and there might be stupid drivers, rather than to expect that it's going to be quick and easy and everyone will be a perfectly polite driver and that you will get there in record time. Probably an unrealistic expectation. So in that case, we would need to just pull that back a little bit. And it really, really releases our frustration if we're not putting our expectations too high. Also, sometimes we have to communicate our expectations with others. So for example, if you just thought that your kids should know that the house should be all picked up by the time you got home, that's probably not helpful. It would be better for you to communicate directly with them and say, by the time I get home from work, I expect that the living room is all picked up, for example. Then you know that they have heard you and the expectation has been made. Sometimes our expectations are too hard on ourselves. We really get stuck on if we made a mistake, or we play conversations over and over in our head, thinking, oh, if I should have said that, or I shouldn't have said that, or even worrying about ones that might happen in the future. Are you expecting yourself to be perfect? Are you expecting that you will never make mistakes? That you will never have to go back and fix something that you might have done wrong? That's probably unrealistic as well. We know that we are going to have challenges every day. There will be difficulties every day in life. And having an attitude of knowing that some bumps are going to come along in the road actually helps us to deal with them better, rather than wishing that we wouldn't have any, being angry that we do have any, or bracing ourselves with anxiety and worry that something is coming. All of these things can help us to adjust our expectations and then our reaction to them. Try to have more realistic expectations for what goes on in your life, for your colleagues, for your kids, and for yourself. Try to forgive and try to let go. One thing that might help you to let go in the moment is to practice what we call 4-7-8 breathing. It's inhaling for 4 seconds, holding, and then exhaling for 8. You can do 2 or 3 rounds of this, and you will find that this very much will reduce your anxiety. It works very quickly on our autonomic nervous system and tells our body and our brain that we need to calm down, that there is not an emergency, that we need to think straight. It's a very, very powerful exercise. So if you haven't tried that, please do. Try it in a moment where you feel like you're going to blow, where you feel like maybe you're going to say something that you're going to regret, where things feel totally overwhelming, or on those nights when you're trying to get to sleep. This is a great way to relax yourself. And often people do 3 or 4 successions of this and find that they easily fall asleep. Another one is counting. Talked about doing counting in our breathing. I recommend counting things that you're grateful for. I recommend counting how many people you talk to today. Often our stress reactions come so quickly, and if we can distract ourselves momentarily, sometimes that means in our physical environment, look around and count how many pictures are on the wall. These might seem like silly little strategies, but it puts space and time between your big emotion and what your reaction is going to be. And sometimes it really only takes a minute, and you can change the whole course of how you're going to react and then what those consequences might be. An extra piece you can add to the breathing and the counting is to have an image in your head. So put yourself on a beach, put yourself in your bed, all cozy. Put yourself out in your patio on a warm day with a glass of lemonade. Imagine yourself with your pets or with a trusted friend. All of these are calming images, and our mind responds very quickly. Our brains are very powerful to help us to imagine a better place, to use the distraction, to use the breathing, and all of those combined can really help you in the moment. When we have constant stress, what is happening is that our fight, flight, freeze, or faint reactions are getting triggered on a regular basis. So you might have had an experience where you felt really anxious. Perhaps you had a near-miss car accident, and all of a sudden your heart was pounding, you felt really jittery, you were breathing quickly. Everything else that was going on in the moment completely went out of your mind, and you stayed only focused on what happened. Unfortunately, though, it often isn't those big reactions. It's those little ones that I was mentioning. And as we have them multiple times a day, for example, you get a call from the principal's office that your child is sitting there. You get news of a new medical diagnosis. Maybe you get an instant message from your boss that says, I need to meet with you at 3:00 today, and you're not sure what that's about. All of those are smaller things that also spike that fight, flight, fear reaction, and recognizing how often that is happening during the day. And if we're not managing that, this is where chronic illness and chronic problems start to happen. We increase our likelihood of problems like high blood pressure, stroke, heart attack, asthma, breathing issues. We decrease our immunity, which means that we're going to suffer a lot more with pain and illness. Often we have difficulty with sleeping. It affects our GI system. It affects our enjoyment of all things in life, our ability to concentrate, and this causes often this constant feeling that no matter how much sleep or how much rest we get, that we're just dragging. Luckily, we know that this can be reversed. There are ways that we can help this. One way is to look at what are your inputs? What are the things that help you? And what are the things that are pulling in your life? Now, there's some of those things we can't get around. So if you have a really stressful job, there are probably some things in your job you're not able to change, but you can change your approach to them. And if you can work on the things that you do have control of, for example, making yourself a healthy lunch and making sure that you eat it so you're not just living on caffeine and a cracker all day at work, making sure that you're taking your paid time off. And when you leave on vacation, to really leave. Don't be checking work emails. Don't be allowing people to access you on your phone. Ways that you can plan ahead so that you're not running late, so that you're not rushed, or that your children aren't rushed. Look at those ways that you can make small changes so that everything in your energy tank starts to build up to be more positive, and we're reducing the likelihood of that depletion. One of the other things we need to manage is our own boundaries, because sometimes we have really great intentions about how we're going to interact and how we're going to keep ourselves well, but other people sometimes interfere, or we have a hard time in dealing with how other people are making requests or demands of us. There are lots of kinds of boundaries. So, for example, physical boundaries. If you're a person who enjoys having hugs, or if you're a person who likes to be physically close to someone, or maybe you're someone who really doesn't appreciate that. Emotional boundaries, for example, how well you're able to know when and where it's okay to share your feelings. Has there been times where you felt like you shared too much, or when you shared with someone, they took that for granted and shared it in places that you didn't want? Or maybe people come and share with you and you feel like you're absorbing all of their emotions and everything that's going on. Your time is a big boundary. When people ask you to do something, do you always say yes? Even if you don't really have time, if you have too many things on your schedule? Technology is another big one. Are you ever shutting off your screen time? Is there ever time where you don't answer your phone or you don't answer your texts? Is there ever time where you put down any kind of electronic and go spend some time in nature? There are all kinds of things that we can look at, and what are we allowing in and what are we allowing to influence our wellness? We generally, in our personalities, have a tendency to go one way or the other. And maybe you can see yourself in this. So, for example, sometimes we have really rigid boundaries. So you might get stressed out and all of a sudden you become almost robotic. And you decide that it really doesn't matter how you feel. or if you're overwhelmed because you just need to do the job and things just have to get done, and you start to avoid people. People ask you, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" And you might say things like, "It doesn't matter. We just have to get this done. I don't have time for that right now." You might start to isolate and cut yourself off from other people. Or you might see yourself on the other end, where you become over-involved. So as I mentioned, someone close to you is struggling and you can't seem to get that out of your mind. Or people are asking you for help consistently and you never say no, to the point that now you're starting to resent that. And even getting to a point where you feel like you're kind of enabling people in bad habits for themselves. I encourage you to get comfortable saying no. There are a lot of us that feel like being nice or being polite doesn't include saying no, but there are nice ways that you can say it. For example, you can say, "That's just not going to work for me," or "It doesn't work this time, but maybe next time," or "Keep me on your radar next time around, next season," or "I'm not able to help in this way, but I could help in this other way. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disappoint you, but right now I can't." Or just saying no. That's all you have to say. But a lot of times we feel like we have to over-explain ourselves. When we learn to say no, we are also giving more power to our yes. So save your yeses for things that are really important to you, the things in your life that really need your energy and your time, like saving time to go on vacation, like making sure that you get to your kid's soccer game, like making sure that you get to bed at a reasonable time so that you can function well the next day. And also realizing that you don't have to do it all, and you don't have to do it all this time. It will be okay. The more that you practice some boundaries on your yeses and nos, the easier it will get, and the greater your feeling of relief that you're finally doing the things you really want to. Language also makes a big difference. If you can change your language from "I have to go to work" to "I want to go to work," it makes a huge difference. And maybe that sounds even a little bit silly to you, but what it calls to mind is, I appreciate that I have a job. I appreciate that I have the ability to do a job. I appreciate that I have colleagues. I appreciate that I have an income from my work. And honestly, I could choose to leave my job. But sometimes we get into that mindset of that we're stuck or we have to, when often it's really a choice that we're making. So look at some of your language. If you say things like, "I have to go get my kids." Yep. Or "I get to go pick up my kids from school. I'm glad I have kids. I'm glad I have a car. And I'm glad I have the ability to go and get them because that relationship means a lot to me." When we talk about all of the different areas that maybe we're struggling with wellness, sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming. If you look at any of these areas on what we call the wellness wheel, you can see how, for example, if you are struggling in your job or your occupational part of the wheel, that is going to affect all of the rest of your life. Or relationally, perhaps you're going through a bad breakup or a divorce. That is going to affect all the other parts of the wheel. But the good news is, if you take some time to put energy and effort into any of these pieces of the wheel, it also makes the whole wheel better. So for example, getting reconnected with an exercise plan, getting reconnected perhaps with a spiritual practice or a religious community is something that can make all of the parts work together better. And I would encourage you to pick just even one area that you could start to focus. You're going to start to gain momentum when you feel better, and it probably will encourage you then to expand to other areas. Think a little bit about, what are your tendencies? What do you do when you get stressed out? Do you need to check your expectations? Do you need to change them a little bit? Are you too hard on yourself? Do you have really rigid boundaries? Or are you letting people get to you too much? Are you saying no often enough? And when you say yes, do you mean it? Check in with yourself on what your tendencies are and think about at least one area that you could make a change. When we talk about long-term self-management, we have to look at patterns of unhealthy coping. Be careful and watch for your use, for example, of alcohol and other things that might, in the short run, feel like they're helping us manage stress, but in the long run become their own issue to manage. Look out for compulsive behavior like overspending or overeating or overworking. Don't ignore your physical and mental health. It is essential to everything else working well. If you're finding that you really don't have any life outside of work, you get up, you work, you go home, you sleep, you work. That's not a life. Your job is only one aspect of your life. Figure out what your priorities are and make sure that you're making time for them. And remember that your real job is not the one that you're getting paid for. Your real job is your relationships with people in your family, your friends, and your participation in the community. All of these things for long-term stress management, you've probably heard before, but they're good reminders and they're basic building blocks. So for example, I'm sure all of you know that you need to eat healthy foods and you need to drink plenty of water. And yet, did you today? Did you eat a healthy breakfast? Did you eat a healthy lunch? Have you been drinking water? Or are you loading up on other things like caffeine or soda or sugary drinks? Don't underestimate the power of these small building blocks to really make you feel better. Get out and move, get some exercise, and get your rest. If there's nothing else that you learn from this presentation, get some rest. Make sure that you have enough sleep time, but also time where you can do something that's relaxing and enjoyable to you. And also use your paid time off. There are no prizes or rewards at the end of your work life where you get accolades for having the most unused vacation time. Don't be that person. Enjoy your time off. Slow down and recognize that everybody has only 24 hours a day. If you don't take your time, somebody will take it from you. Claim it, be mindful, and set your priorities. And be grateful. Don't let them pass by. Look for those things that are good in your life and focus on those. Evaluate your priorities and make sure that you're giving some attention to them. Get connected with anything that might be spiritual that could help you direct a purpose in your job, a purpose in your life, purpose in your relationships. If you're not sure and you're struggling with any of these, the Employee Assistance Program is here to help you. These are all things that we can do to help coach you along to hopefully increase the wellness in your personal life and in your professional life. It's also important to keep a good perspective. If you think back in your life, the times that you have grown and changed the most is when you have gone through challenges. Very rarely do we expand ourselves or become better people when times are easy or things are going smoothly for us. So look for those opportunities of wisdom and character development that happen when you are faced with challenges. I encourage you again to think about something that you can commit to today to help improve your wellness. And one of those might be connecting with your Employee Assistance Program. The Employee Assistance Program through Ascension is a benefit of your employment. It is a place for short-term counseling where you can work through some of your personal concerns or maybe to work through things that are bothering you in the workplace. It's also a connection for you to other community resources that can help. The Employee Assistance Program serves all employees of your organization and their household members. It also serves retirees and people who have recently left employment for a short time. It's also a resource for leaders who maybe are struggling as a new leader or have some difficult employee situations to manage. The EAP provides presentations and team building for your entire organization. Because it's paid for by your employer, the Employee Assistance Counseling Program is completely free for you. It's at no cost for you and every member of your family. It doesn't go through insurance. There are no copays. The Employee Assistance Program is confidential. And what that means is that when you are in a counseling session, everything you talk about is private. It's also confidential in that no one at your workplace is going to know that you have utilized the service unless you would tell them. The confidentiality and the privacy is really important to us. There are a couple of situations where these might not be the case. One is if you are mandated to come to counseling services, then your supervisor does get to know that you have attended. If you have minor children, you as a parent or guardian do have access to the counseling records and can also work in collaboration with the counselor to know what's best for your child. And finally, if you express any safety concerns where the counselor is concerned about your safety or the safety of the community, then the confidentiality rules don't apply. The Employee Assistance Program has providers all across Wisconsin, and at an office that's near you, you can meet with a counselor in the office or virtually on a video meet or in a phone call. Generally, the sessions are about 45 minutes. Check us out on our website. There you can find bios on all of our staff. You can connect with some online and print resources. And you can also connect to previously recorded presentations, either on our website or through our YouTube channel. You can also go there to make an appointment. Today, we've talked a little bit about the importance of self-awareness and how we can improve that skill, how our boundaries really make a big difference in protecting and increasing our wellness, and looking at some of those things in our life that maybe is drawing from our wellness bank, and then those other things that are adding or depositing into our wellness bank. And also a reminder of how the Employee Assistance Program counselors could help you to find better work-life balance and to work through some of the barriers that you might have to wellness. I thank you again for your time. I remind you that we're here to help, and we look forward to your call. Thank you.